Hi, in this tutorial we're going to continue with what we learned in the last lesson, and we're going to create an assembly with the handle and the hammer head. To do that, we're going to come up here to the top left and we're going to click on this arrow right next to new. We've created new parts before, so we're going to go to the drop down and we're going to select make assembly from part or assembly. And so now I'm in what's called the assembly environment. This is a little bit different than the part environment because you can't really per se create a part in this environment. It's more for putting together assemblies. So I have here the two documents that are open in SolidWorks right now. There's the hammer and there's the hammer handle. So I'm going to just highlight the first part that I want in my assembly. I'm going to choose the handle for the first part. So I'm going to come up here to the top left and I'm just going to hit OK. And what I've done is I've automatically, by doing that, I've automatically placed my hammer handle with the origin right here of the assembly. So the same way that parts have a front, top, right, and origin, the assembly has a front plane, top plane, right plane, and origin as well. So by going to insert components, which comes up automatically, and just hovering over it and hitting the check mark, it automatically places it in the center. Now that's in contrast to if I highlight a part and I kind of move my cursor into the modeling space, all of a sudden I can take my part and I can click and place it, which I don't want to do for the first part. I'm going to right click and delete that. So we're going to come up here to the top left and click on insert components right here. And I'm going to click on hammer, which is the hammer head. And this part, I'm going to place it right here in the assembly. So as you can see, the two parts are now together, and so I can start constraining. So what I want to do is first I want to constrain them in one direction so that they can't move in that direction. I'm going to select the right plane of this part, and I'm going to select the right plane of this part by holding down shift. Now, holding down control. By holding down control, I can select both of the planes. So that's the right plane and the right plane, as you can see. So by selecting the two planes that are, as you can see, they're parallel to each other, I can come and click on this mate here in the assembly tab, mate, click on that, and you can see the part actually moved to be in line. So as far as that goes, we're going to hit OK, top left, and so that mate has been filled. We can cancel out of this. So what is the mate? Well, the mate is a lot like constraints. In lesson 3 we went over sketch constraints. In the assembly environment, we're going over mates, which is similar to sketch constraints, except it has to do with actual models instead of sketches. So as you can see, if I look at this assembly from the top, you can see that when I move this part, it's constrained in this direction because it's moving along the right plane. So wherever I move it, it's always going to be in line. So now that we did that constraint, we can try for another plane constraint. And this one is going to be the front plane. So I selected the front plane, as you can see here, in both parts. Click on one, hold down Control, and click on the other. And I can come up to the top here and click on Mate, and mate them together. And I'm going to hit OK. All right, great. So now you can see that I could actually move this up and down because it's fully constrained. So it can't move in any direction other than up and down. For the last constraint, I'm going to click on this face, and I'm going to click on this face here. And just like I did in the other two times, going to come up here to mate, click on it. And SolidWorks is smart enough to understand what I'm trying to do here. It knows that I want to make a coincident constraint. So I'm going to, I see that that's selected here under Standard Mates tab. And I'm just going to click on the OK. All right, great. So our two parts are constrained. Now, if you didn't model this assembly, you might find it to be hard to tell the difference between the two parts. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up the hammer on its own. I'm actually going to right click on the hammer handle. I'm going to click on this colored circle, and I'm going to select, if you click on it, it brings up these two little options here. Click on the bottommost one, which is the hammer handle. When you click on it, it brings you to this color menu where you can come in and you can select colors for it. And this is really helpful because when you click on this, you can kind of select a color that's going to be in contrast with the other part's color. So, you know, I can come in here and select a pastel or a grayscale or standard. You know, I can make it whatever I want. There are some other options, you know, for the image, or if you want to have a surface finish or something like that. So, you know, for this example, we can select rough or, you know, color, which is so if I come back here and I click on, say, this orange, now I can come up here top left and hit OK. And I can also click on the hammer head, right click on it, click on appearances, and same thing, click on the part. And we can change this to be a grayish color, kind of like a metal. And I'm going to hit OK, top left. So this looks a little bit more realistic now. At least the colors are a little bit in contrast with each other, so it's easier to tell where one part starts and the other part ends. So as you, the designer or engineer, you're creating an assembly and you're creating parts and all these things. But if someone opens up this file, you want them to have an easy time using it. That's why you would want to click and select different colors for the parts to make it a little bit easier. That being said, we've constrained it the way that we want to. And so that's our hammer assembly.